Welcome everybody to our next session where Attitude is Everything, where I interview real business owners that refuse to roll over during these times and have basically just, kept control of their business and managed to push on and not only surviving but actually thriving as well. So in this session, I speak to Hayden Bloomfield of Bloomfield Sustainable Solutions. Welcome, Hayden.
Hi, Dean. How's it going?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. How are you? All good?
Very good, very good.
Good. So, Hayden, for the purpose of everyone listening, could you just give us a quick intro as to who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So, hi everyone. I'm Hayden Bloomfield. I own and run Bloomfield Sustainable Solutions. So we're fundamentally gardeners and tree surgeons. The majority of the business is taken up on the gardening side of things, where we have. So our mission statement is educate and encouraging the nation to become sustainable, environmentally friendly. So a lot of how we care for grounds and gardens is all around going into environment, caring for it, and seeing it develop into something a lot more sustainable and environmentally friendly through our own processes and operations ourselves. And then within the garden, what sort of adaptations involves how we can evolve it over time.
Awesome. So what, who's your main sort of client base, Hayden? Who do you work with?
Main client base predominantly is private homeowners. So that can be like Little Doris's front lawn, or it can be people with sort of their own private home, mansions, estates, whatever you want to call it, where we look after like all the grounds. And then a combination of that and a good 20% of our diary is taken up with commercial work as well, where we're looking after sort of residential associations, housing associations, care homes and such.
Cool. Okay. So you've got quite a wide range of clientele as well, right? Like you say, for the, you look after the smaller gardens, but right up to, multi-million pound houses.
Yeah. If there's grass growing, we can cut it.
Yeah, exactly. And you do other stuff as well as grass cutting though, right? You've got other things that you offer. Yeah,
so within caring for grounds and gardens, that's why I like to call it care rather than maintenance. So that can be full scope in terms of whether that's mowing, hedging, weeding, small little parts around changing, planting, soft soil landscaping, little bits of hard landscaping, very minimal bits of hard landscaping, and then tree surgery, obviously, in the same sort of spec where we look after commercial grounds. We'll do whether it's annual work on the trees or if there's just one particular project that comes up, they need to have a tree dismantled due to disease, dead, or whatever it is. And then within residential properties, same sort of thing where our clients have needs for their trees or one-off jobs for new clients. We do all that sort of thing as well.
Perfect. All right. So so let's take some steps back, right? Let's go back to sort of March time when this was all kicking off, and when was it? A question I'm asking everyone really is when was it that you first realised that the enormity of what was going to happen? Because like I've said before, no one saw really what was going to happen. We saw what was going on in China and other places in the world, but no one really necessarily thought it was going to hit like it did. So when was the first time you realised something was really going to have to change for you and your business?
The enormity, I suppose, sank in probably around the end of March when I started seeing either existing clients or new clients that we were starting to onboard, when they started either cancelling, postponing. That's when it all started to hit. When I was getting phone calls of people literally booked in work to do, new clients to start going on, whether that's fortnightly or monthly, and suddenly they're going, right, all our holidays have been cancelled, we don't know what's happening, we're gonna put everything on hold, we're cancelling as many bills as we can and just gonna stick to being at home. So that's when it started. That was the oh bugger moment. Right.
And where were you at that point? What was your mindset? Because I mean, look, you're a relative, you're still a new business, right? How long have you been going?
So myself, I've been going 2.5 years, but as a limited company only for the last 6 months to a year.
Right. So and you're how old, if you don't mind me? I'm sure you don't mind me asking because you're young, right?
24.
Right. So in all due respect, you didn't go through the 2009 and all of that sort of time, right? You haven't had an economic downturn.
No, I hadn't even picked my GCSEs at that point.
You what, sorry?
I hadn't even picked my GCSEs at that point.
That's made me feel old. So look, so moving on swiftly. So, you haven't dealt with any of that side of it really. So, where was your head when all this started to happen?
So when it all started kicking in, I was at a point where I was expanding. So I had 2 employees full time, and then I'd literally just taken on the 3rd employee with my mindset focusing on building that diary up and then taking on a fourth employee. So literally I've taken on a third employee and then people have suddenly started cancelling. So I've got a certain amount of work, which then's drying up and there doesn't seem to be anything to put in its place. So that's, that's my mindset was around expanding this business. And then suddenly that all came crumbling down. We went into lockdown and I suppose I got to a point where I just thought about downscaling and I don't know what I'd call it, but I went through a stage of just like giving up. Oh, not giving up, but just almost to a point where I'm like, I'm just going to put everything on hold. I've got all these ambitions, all these dreams to build a massive, successful company, but I'm just going to forget about all of that for now and see what I can do, just learning. But because that put me back on the tools like full time with no staff through different reasons due to COVID. But it definitely had an impact on me. But in retrospect to that, now that I wouldn't say we're coming out of lockdown slowly. I'm glad to have gone through it and experienced it because while it was a terrible thing for many people and it had its downsides for me, but it gave me a huge learning curve. I had so many lessons within that process and that journey of lockdown and just how it impacted staff, how I have to communicate to staff, how I have to communicate to clients, and how I have to deal with challenges we'll have in business, and whether that's standard challenges or that's global pandemic challenges.
Yeah, well, that's definitely being thrown in at the deep end, right? So how did you work with that? What sort of effects did it have on you? What did you learn with your staff especially? So, we've already said you were fairly new, you're a new business, right? You're young, you've got bundles of energy and enthusiasm and desire to do well and push forward in that. But then all of a sudden you've just had this massive body blow, right? So how did you deal with your staff? Did you put them on furlough? Did you keep them going? Did you lay anyone off? What happened there?
So of the 3 employees, one was laid off due to circumstances outside of COVID where I'd taken them on and it wasn't working out. So they got laid off anyway, which was a blessing, as I realized as soon as we hit lockdown. I had another employee that it affected them. Well, I don't know what the honest truth is, but it appeared to affect them a lot more, like psychologically and mentally. So they sort of shut themselves off, and communication was really difficult. And I was doing a lot to try and keep up the government guidelines, keep a business that I was losing all my staff, losing some clients, but still had too much work on for just myself. So trying to find backup support there to help me out to get it done while trying to keep up with government guidelines, as I said, and just trying to like balance everything while I've got an employee that could technically work that's isolating through their own decision, which I can completely respect. Like, it's their decision, but just
I think it's worth pointing out here. So I know full well that you have totally adhered to everything of safe, and you're morally as a company. I mean, when we'll come to this about the whole sustainable solutions and everything, and morally and ethically, you're very, very strong, right? One of the strongest people I've met within the way that you portray that. So, you've continued to stick to all of the guidelines and actually bring extra health and safety measures in, right, to make sure that your staff, your clients, yourself, everybody's still safe during this time.
Yeah, tried to. So, I mean, they've obviously, the government guidelines have been updating like week on week, but yeah, trying to just be as safe as possible, but try and keep. That's the battle I find as a business owner compared to an employee. Is employees don't have the same experience as a business owner, so I've got to think of them, their well-being, their family's well-being, think of my clients' well-being, but think of the business as well. And so, as I said, like where one employee was isolated, another employee was ill, and so I've got to make sure that there's a job for them to come back to. So I've got to make sure the business survives. So there is an element of, in that conversation, I'm trying to work out what is the safest, most suitable option for them, but also when can you come back to work, provided I create a safe working environment. So it is a conflict.
So, and so, obviously all of that going on, you're already thinking, do I need to scale back? Do I need to just not lie low, but maybe put it on a back burner, this element, these plans for growth, etc. So what changed? What was there something that was a catalyst? Was there a wake up call? Was it just a cycle that you went through? What was it that made you, just go, actually, this is not right. This is not me.
Changing point, I think. So the employer I had that was ill, they ended up on furlough. I could furlough them under the guidelines for a short while, and then they started to come as they started to return to work. So I had someone to help me out then full time again. So that gave me reassurance. But also in studying business and having a business, I always have these like epiphany moments. I can't. What do you call them? Something about sudden the sudden things that hit you and just go.
So like, you know, like blinding, flashing obvious, or just a realization.
Yeah. So I have like these epiphanies every now and then, and it just throughout lockdown, I just seem to have a complete acceleration of that. And the biggest thing was just in recruitment, I found such a better way to find great people to join the company. And I think a lot of that was just in going through lockdown, in seeing how that's impacted the world, the country, our community. And so for me, having a business isn't just about profit and loss and seeing how much money I can make. It's about how can my business impact the community, the nation, or the world, hopefully one day. And what better time than when we're all in a global pandemic, what can we do as a company to try and just put a smile on some people's faces? So I was doing different things throughout. I did a isolation ideas video every week of just things people can do in their garden safely in their own home with experience in gardening or no experience, with all the tools they need or no tools at all, just trying to come up with fun, engaging activities. And going through all of that, it made me realize a lot more what I want this company to be and how I want it to grow. So then as I started getting staff back and was able to find, as I said, with these realizations, I suddenly knew much more about my company and what I wanted it to be and how I wanted it to grow, the brand I wanted and the culture I wanted within it. And so by having that, I then could put that across more so in how I market the recruitment strategy. So then the people that were starting to read that, it was engaging with those people that I want to engage with. So then going through all of that has certainly brought me back onto like that accelerated path where I'm just like buzzing for it.
Yeah, so I mean, you've used this time wisely. You're saying, right, that you've literally looked at your whole business model as well. You've looked at what you want to do, what it is you want to do, and why you want to do it, and how you want to do it, right?
Yeah, completely. It's ironic that I had less time than ever because I was completely on the tools while trying to do all these extra things. But somehow, despite all of that, I still managed to find extra time to do extra things. So, like even my own personal routine within life, I started getting up earlier, putting more into my own lifestyle so that I was being healthier and reading more, studying more, despite having to go out on the tools every single day and deal with government guidelines and employees not being here, all sorts of things. But yeah, so I managed to be quite productive, I'd like to think.
Well, it's it's no coincidence that the business owners that have turned around and managed to adapt and reassessed everything that they do, question the norm, are the business owners that are coming out of this lockdown period in much better shape, right? So, and hopefully as well, there's a lot of businesses out there which are future-proofing themselves for maybe further lockdowns. Maybe what if it's not a pandemic, it'll be something else, or a downturn in the economy or something. So, okay, so I mean, So you mentioned that you started to, you had this epiphany moment, this realization. So what was the plan after that?
The plan was to make a better plan, really. So it's just a case of looking at everything we do. And I've always been extremely obsessive and very analytical. So from as young as I can remember being in primary school, always analysing people around me, what they do, the decisions they make and what leads to those decisions. And that I apply that now more than ever, just in terms of clients, staff, everything around what does this company mean to them? Like as a staff member entering into this business, what is it to them as a client meeting this business? How do we impact them compared to other gardening companies or tree companies? So, coming out of all this lockdown, is sort of the whole time I was analysing that, and then obviously thinking, how has that affected people's lives? So what is it that they want from us now in terms of our service? So is it about being strapped for cash? Is it about trying to create a service that is more sustainable, that is more environmentally friendly? Because I think a lot of us has gone through this whole lockdown and it's hit us where we're suddenly starting to think about what we use and where it comes from, and actually, is that ethical or is it not? And inevitably the answer a lot of the time is it's not. So people are starting to be a lot more conscious about that. So in just trying to have as many conversations as I can with as many different people as I can, with their business owners, clients, just seeing how they're going, making sure I can email or message, phone people, just say, how's it going? Are you staying safe? And just seeing what else we can do for them. And as we start to come out and I don't know, find a new normal, so to speak. That's where all those conversations has helped me learn. And just, as I say, the plan was put a plan together. So it's enabled me to take all of these lessons I've learned and just find how I want to build this business and what I can change, what can I adapt, and how can I evolve it to be something better.
So what would you say was the biggest challenge for you in the last 3 months, 3.5 months, whatever, what's the biggest challenge for you that it's been, and how did you overcome it? Staff,
always.
That's the majority of business, whether there's a pandemic or not, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just around, I suppose the answer is staff, because they're the ones that I'm having the most emotive conversations with. So with clients, yeah, COVID's impacted their lives, and it's just a case of either they carry on with us or they put us on hold or whatever it is. Whereas with staff, obviously, I'm responsible for them. So I'm responsible for their income, I'm responsible for their well-being, and I feel responsible to make sure they're happy in what they do and feel safe and comfortable. So that's why it was the biggest challenge, just because I'm so involved with it, I suppose, to a certain degree. I'm so involved in their lives, and that's what made it the biggest challenge, was just, and having different people, like different staff members to deal with, who all interpret things in a different way and want to communicate in a different way. So as I said, where communication was a challenge for one of the guys, wouldn't pick up the phone to me. So then I had to message, and then what I'm trying to say in a message can sound very different to them.
Yeah.
So that's where the biggest challenges were. And and again, that's where a lot of the lessons came from. So where they would respond in a certain way that was negative, or they saw what I was saying in a negative connotation, I then had to step back and go, okay, if I'm them, how does that message read, and why is it coming across that way? And
so what has that taught you? I mean, just what's that taught you about you as a business owner, as a manager, as a leader?
I think it's taught me a lot in terms of how to understand people better, how to understand their motivations and their concerns. And it's also taught me that the process I use is a good one. So I suppose I always look at it that in terms of my capacity for knowledge and the knowledge I have, I'm never like more than 10% full. Like I've always got so much I need to learn. And it almost panics me that I don't know enough in terms of how to manage people, how to talk with them to get the best out of them and make sure that they do feel respected, happy, valued, all in one, even when addressing problems and issues or stuff that's done wrong, or going through a pandemic. So it's taught me that my process is a good one, even if I always look at myself as being like, I don't know, I suppose a very low graded person in terms of understanding psychology and understanding how to communicate well.
So that's quite interesting. So I'd like to just ask you on that a bit more about the learning and the capacity to learn that. So what do you do to learn? So I'm often saying that you gotta learn before you earn, right? And I for one spend a hell of a lot of time and investment of time and financially in learning and growing as a person. So what do you do for your side? Where do you find your learnings? What do you do, and how do you find time? You've just said about you went into lockdown and you had to go straight back onto the tools. You had to cover staff that were either off ill, furloughed, whatever, didn't turn up. You had issues around that. You built a team, again, we'll come to in a minute, that you're coming out of out of lockdown in a better place than when you went into it, to be fair, right? So how did you find time to keep learning on that?
I guess being incredibly obsessive and analytical has always helped. So even just in everything in my day-to-day life, I'm always observing. And so, for example, like supermarkets, how they changed, how they adapted. So just going to do, not that I'm involved in the food shop a lot, but if I'm going along to do the food shop, suddenly it's a whole new experience. So I'm looking and analysing what changes have been made and how people are responding to that. So now that we're all queuing up, are they compliant with it, or are they sort of frustrated and moaning? So that's everything that I'm doing. I'm always analysing. Even in the normal world, I'd look at, if I'm walking around shopping centre like a Bloomfield, I'll look at how the aisles are all laid out and how everything's stocked, and how does that impact people's lives? How does that impact their vision, what they're seeing, and how the shop, and looking at how it changes over the season. So obviously the shop wants to sell a certain product, so I'll look and go, that's why that's there, that's why that's at eye level, that's why that's down the bottom, and always observing these things. And seeing what I can learn from it and how I can apply that to my own business in terms of pricing, price ranges, all that sort of thing. And then in my own routine, I'll always look at how I can be more and more efficient.
Yeah.
So like in the way that I've developed my own personal diary. So I used to have a book diary, which was the worst thing ever. So I now have it all on my phone, where I'll have different things slotted in the time. And then I'll have, I always have to-do list. I like to have a list that I can cross off, tick off, or just, on a phone now, I just get rid of it. And I always work to that. So then that gives me all the things I need to do. But then, as well, I just start getting up early. So I get up at 5 a.m. every day. I begin my day by exercising. So I do like exercise and yoga every day to start off the day. I think that's a good way to start. Always have breakfast. I always prioritize 8 hours sleep. So I foul that probably every other day, but I try and get like a full night's sleep. So then I know I'm gonna have a good mindset for the day. But by getting up so early, it gives you so much time in the morning to have peace and quiet where you can read and study. So as well, in terms of like going into efficiencies, even when I'm eating breakfast, I'll have a series of different videos or like channels on YouTube I'll watch, whether that's on business studies, like how to overcome certain challenges, or just different things in business, like systemizing or introducing processes to be more efficient, more profitable. Or if I've got something, so for example, through all of this, I was looking at the stock market a lot and big companies and what some of the biggest companies in the world were doing to overcome it, and how that's impacted their goals and their missions, and how that has impacted the stock price and all that sort of thing. So then I was watching a lot of videos on that and people analyzing it. And a lot of the time, if you can just find some really good channels, people have done all that research for you. They can just give you all the research in bullet points. So that's really helped.
So where do you, so I mean, it's invaluable when, you know, a lot of people just go through life and go through their daily routine and never look up and notice what's going on around them. So when you talk about the supermarkets and the bigger boys that are out there in the business and these big monsters of big corporations and that, you know, learning from those as well. So, but what's your main source of learning? Is it audio books? Is it reading? Is it webinars? Is it, you know, where do you get your main source of learning from for that?
Bit of everything. I don't know what I'd put the main, to be honest, I think sometimes the biggest learning, I think one of the biggest sources of learning is probably having the ability to go through life and reflect on situations. I'd say that's my biggest source of learning. It's just if something happens that's I deem negative in some way, or I'm bummed about the outcome of it, just having the ability, instead of sort of having anger towards the person and shutting them out or screaming at them, arguing with them, I think having the ability to stop and go, what went wrong there, and review the conversation or the communications and see how that broke down into that path. So I read a lot of books, but then it's hard to answer because I read a lot of books, I watch a lot of videos, I invest in like seminars, webinars, coaching, all sorts of things, mentors, coaches. So I pretty much am obsessed with the idea of learning and always making sure every day I'm learning something new. I'm increasing my capacity to manage a business, to grow a business. So to say it's one thing, I'd put down to it being life and having the ability to look at situations when they're negative and what made it go negative, and if it's positive, what made it go positive. So then you can sort of guide life in that direction.
Okay, so let me ask you this: if you was to say one audio book, one book that you've read or whatever in the last 6 months, 12 months, what's been the most impact on you?
Oh, let me look at the bookshelf. I'm going to pick one of the most recent ones, not because it's a favourite. I mean, it is one of my favourites, but just I think for anyone that's going through a lot of challenges with the whole lockdown and the pandemic, I'm going to say, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his surname right, Robert Iger, the ride of a lifetime. He was or is the CEO of Disney. So he talks about being the CEO of this global brand and the challenges of getting ready to get up on stage and present like this big announcement and being all excited, motivating all the people around you, suddenly getting a phone call where disasters happened and it involves like people dying or whatever, all to do with your global brand. And you think, how as a business leader can you deal with that while you've got to get up on stage and make everybody smile? So
Yeah.
I can't think of many of us that will ever have to go through that, but reading that and seeing how he's overcome it or how he deals with it and how he processes it, and you sort of think of your own life and think, Christ, it's really not that difficult, is it? I'm only managing a couple of people. I've only got one relationship
because
with.
it's all relative, right? And it's all relative. So you know, for the one person bands out there and the brand new businesses or the established businesses or, you know, Richard Branson's Virgin, whatever it is, you know, we go through the same challenges, right? And it's all relative. You know, it's just like if you're playing football on a Sunday afternoon, you know, in the cup final, and that's just as important to you as it is when Chelsea or United or something are playing in the FA Cup final, right? So it's all relative. So how have you managed to or what? Let me rephrase it. What have you changed in your business? You know, how have you adapted in your business to cope with what's gone on?
How long have you got? So just I've done a lot in terms of so that's one thing. So like systemization and optimizing processes. So to take one thing, for example, just cash flow. So spending time every single week going through cash flow and looking at what money's come in, what money's gone out, what money's still owed, what money's like overdue, all that sort of thing. My process before the pandemic was quite a slow one, where every week I'd have to spend an hour or two every Friday morning going through it all. And then obviously going through the pandemic, having to be on the tools every day. Suddenly I'm like, well, I haven't got 2 hours Friday morning to sit around because I've got to be out cutting grass or cutting hedges. So it gave me a bit of a kick up the arse to make sure that I make it more efficient. So then that's where I invested in a bit more study and learning and some tutoring in terms of the software I use, making it much more efficient. And I was doing things where I was doing the one job twice. So for example, I have a thing where with my invoices, looking at what's outstanding, I had 2 lists to go through. One was on an Excel spreadsheet, one was on software. I thought, what's the point of that? So now I have it all on the one system. A lot of it's automated. So that's one big element, is going through the systems and processes and seeing what can be more efficient, because I had to go back on the tools. I had to either that or I just don't sleep. So that was one thing. Even looking at our operations and the tools. So like a big thing, as I said, our mission statement, educating and encouraging the nation to be sustainable and environmentally friendly. So I was looking at more into the business operations, what we do, the tools we use, how environmentally friendly are they? And it's always something I've been aware of, but it's like one thing, for example, we have diesel vans, but I've always wanted to move to electric. And in the lockdown, I started learning and looking more into electric vans. And an example like of how useful videos can be, rather than looking at all the electric vans on the market, I just went on YouTube and found someone who had already done that, and then they made a video in 20 minutes going through each one, the pros, the cons, comparing them to each other, what's available on the market. So then instantly I've got a lot more knowledge on electric vans. So then I know in our operations I can move that step forward to becoming more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, and that's really important to you, isn't it? So, you know, what other steps have you made? You've started to look at your tools as well, right? You're using electric tools.
Yeah. So all 90% of our power tools now, so the motors, trimmers, hedge cutters, are all battery rather than petrol. So they're zero emissions now. They're a lot quieter, a lot more peaceful to work with, a lot nicer, cleaner. The only thing at the moment is mowers. So this is where I had setbacks. So before the pandemic, we were supposed to be trialing a demo mower that's battery. That all went on hold now. I've tried having the conversation. It's still a bit, where we're sort of coming out of the lockdown, it's still a bit up in the air, but hopefully that'll be something that we'll look at soon to become even closer to zero emissions through our whole process. But yeah, that is a massive thing for me. So it's given me the chance to look at what's available and do some more research into it.
Cool. So what's your biggest win over this period?
Ooh. I think, the biggest win would be my overall, or the company's overall brand, is I've just gained so much more clarity over exactly what that is. And the results of that have been exponential in terms of, it's sort of like a ripple effect. So just at the very core, I've identified so much more into the brand and what I want this company to be and how I want it to impact clients, staff, me personally, family, all those around me. And just by having so much more clarification over that, it's then rippled out to affect how I recruit, rippled out how I provide a service, how I quote a service, how I put together the jobs we do, the maintenance or care we do, the gardens and grounds. So just by that one thing, it's just impacted every aspect of the business. So that's the single biggest win.
That's a big win, right? So would you say that you've come out of lockdown stronger than when you went in?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I know it certainly sounds like you're a lot clearer and got more clarity about what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it. So what does the rest of the year hold for Bloomfield Sustainable Solutions?
Rest of the year, expansion. So we've got two chaps starting full time. Well, it's supposed to be starting in a couple of weeks, but they are starting even sooner than that just because of the amount of work.
So what does that take you up to now?
So that will be then 4 people full time now. So yeah, before lockdown it was 3 people. Then afterwards had 1 person. Then now we're back to 4. Or no, sorry, now we're up to 4. But for the rest of the year, it's then a case of once I've got 4 people settled, then trying to find a nice little piece of land. So for anyone listening, if you know any farmers who've got a little piece of land, like an acre or less, around Gravesend or 10-mile radius, I want to create an eco HQ. So our headquarters, where it'll be completely self-contained, self-sustaining, off-grid headquarters, yard space. So that's the next big thing. And then obviously moving towards electric vans. So we'll be getting an electric van within the next sort of month, more battery tools. So it's just becoming ever more environmentally friendly and less emissions from us personally.
Brilliant. So last question. What has this taught you about Hayden?
What has it taught me about Hayden? Hayden, it's taught me, I don't want to say this and jinx myself, but it's taught me that no matter what sort of shit you're thrown in life, that you can always, I've always had that mentality and that attitude that the more crap that I'm given, the better I'll become, because it's you learn your biggest lessons when you're going through the worst times. And so I've learned that I'm quite resilient in terms of that, and I've learned I'm quite, I suppose, almost quite efficient in learning, and I can really, I suppose that's again an advantage of being so small, is that you can make those changes instantly. So if this was a national company with hundreds or thousands of staff with all these processes, if I woke up one day and actually, if we do this within quoting, it'll be so much easier, more straightforward, and give so much more clarity to clients. As a small company, I can change that in a day. If this was a big company, it just wouldn't be possible to do within months. So I suppose it's taught me that Hayden is malleable, is efficient I know I'm always willing. I don't know, I already knew I was always willing to adapt and learn more and wanted to learn more, but it's,
You've proven it now.
I guess I've proven it, and I've
now, right?
I've got the faith in myself. And it's also taught me that I don't know, I suppose I can have fun as well. It's coming out of lockdown, I've sort of looked at, I don't have to work every single second of the day, and I have got a relationship and a hobby, so I can find time every now and then sort of to do those things.
Awesome. Well, look, mate, thank you for sharing your experience and your time with us. Look, I'm sure there's a lot of business owners, young business owners especially, but all business owners of all ages as well, that can take some motivation and inspiration from what we've just talked about. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Dave.